Hello, you're watching and listening to an episode of Leaders and Engineers. I'm Nadarhan Yusupov, and today we're broadcasting from Tartu Science Park in Estonia. Today our guest is an expert in applied physics and mechatronics, which includes software and hardware development, telecommunications. He is a Bachelor of Science in Physics, Master of Science cum laude in Applied Physics from University of Tartu and Chalmers University of Technology, with more than 18 years of experience in software and hardware design and management. He worked in such companies and organizations as Nortel and Enterprise Estonia. He's living in Estonia and works as head of engineering at Science Mosaic, a company providing hardware and software solutions with big data and IoT. Please meet Tanel Ainla.
I'm happy to meet you.
It's a bit interesting how we're sitting, but I think it's
Yeah,
kind of cool.
That's the lowest chair I got here at the moment. So,
All right. So you are working here in Tartu, and you're working in the Tartu Science Park.
Yep.
Can you tell briefly what this science park is about, and who are your neighbors, and where you're located?
yeah, well, the science park is basically a big office complex, which was created by the city of Tartu and the University of Tartu to house the upcoming and growing companies, and then to encourage also spin-offs from the university to start something, so they would have a place to come together, a place to get decent office rooms, and also different laboratory capabilities, which are not in common office buildings. And then also here we have, for example, a proto lab, which is a prototyping company for mechanic parts, which needs expensive and specific equipment that startups can't afford. And then having all those different capabilities side by side, it's a really great environment. Usually when you are a small company with a small team, it can start to feel a bit lonely. But if you have like-minded companies around you, it's really nice. And in this complex, there are 2 buildings and more than 70 companies here. So
That's really a great approach when you are kind of creating ecosystem and supporting each other. So in this podcast, we do something a bit different. We try up a mock-up of the job interview. So I would propose to you right now to try out a job interview. We will assume that you're applying for a position, leadership position in the engineering company, which is doesn't exist, this company, and the product it makes doesn't exist, so it's imaginary company. And I'll be asking you questions, and after some point, then I'll say that this mock-up of job interview is over.
Yeah.
And I'll ask your feedback.
Okay.
How did you like it, and how was it similar to your experience when you were hiring and being yourself hired?
Yeah.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Excellent. Hello, Tanel.
Hi.
Thank you for applying for a leadership position in our R&D department.
Help.
And our company is producing a typewriter for iPads.
Typewriter.
Yeah, so if you're conservative, you like old stuff, here's a solution. And you will be leading a team of R&D engineers developing this product.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show you the photo of this product. You will see this on your screens.
Yep.
So you put your iPad and you just type, and
it actually touches the screen.
Yeah.
It's a really raw experience. Yeah. This is actually how I learned to type when I was a kid. In the beginning of the 80s, before we got a computer, we had a typewriter at home. Mechanical ones, not electric amplification. So it was, you really had to push it. So it's an interesting product.
So my first question would be, why have you decided to apply for this position to our company?
Well, first of all, I really like doing the end-to-end engineering, and you have their, you don't have electronics there probably because you want to give the raw mechanic experience, but you have really interesting mechanical challenges. because I've taken apart actually a traditional typewriter, and it's for a 7-year-old, it was a lot of sweat and tears to put it back together, because there were so many delicate moving parts that had to be exactly right so it would actually work for a long time in a reliable way. So that's one thing. So,
but do you think that it could be a good solution for people programming? Would you program on the typewriter?
Probably not, but I think it would be one thing that I've learned over the past 10 years when I've seen a lot of different hardware startups failing and succeeding. Then providing people somewhat like a awkward experiences, it can be a really, really lucrative business. Like one company, which I can admit that I never would have believed that they would succeed business-wise, but they're really successful. Is a Tartu company called the Tigritter, and what they built.
How do you pronounce the name?
Tigritter, and they are building the world's best vinyl record cleaning machines. So that goes to the similar category, like a world best typewriter for iPad. It's bringing the old experience back, and then the amount of older people with money who really want to get back to the old times music listening experience. That was it appeared to be a lot bigger market than anyone expected. So this sometimes it might not be the most best audio quality or best ergonomic experience for the programmer, but there might be a market for it. So never say never.
Can you tell, let's say, if your life was a sitcom, what would be a title, and who would play you in the lead role?
A sitcom? Oh, yeah, it's a pretty hard question, because I haven't had TV since 2006.
What's the reason?
I went to university in 2005, and then in the dormitory room we of course bought a computer, desktop computer back then, and also I got the TV set. And during the first exams session, we discovered that we procrastinate too much on the TV, and we just threw it out. And after that, I've never missed it, because we've been part of making TV shows, but I don't watch much TV at all. But nowadays, I watch a lot of YouTube, like your show, because in that way you're controlling the material that you consume. You pick it, because in the TV you just sit down and go with the flow, and quite often you discover yourself watching stuff that provides you no value at all.
One thing you don't control in the YouTube is the ads, unless you pay this premium subscription.
Yep.
It's becoming closer to TV, kind of.
Yeah, it's going there, but in a kind of way it does, because you can also rate the ads, and then sometimes YouTube listens. If you find some ad annoying, you can click a button that you really don't like it.
You, if I look at your experience, you have a good track in physics. You started in bachelor's, then you continued to master's.
Yep.
But at which point you decided you will go to physics, and what have motivated you?
Yeah, well, it was a pretty interesting story, in the case that when I remember from the start of the school, when I was in elementary school, I really liked more like crafts and arts and architecture, for example. So I liked all the creative contests, but when I got a bit older, like in high school level, then I did all sorts of different competitions, also in like math and physics and informatics, and also in arts and writing. And I discovered that the hard sciences are the most honest ones, because to win the creative competition, like painting or essay writing, it was I did experiments going to the competitions, and for me it really
for painting.
What ruined for me the arts was that I engineered my way to get good positions in competitions. Like for essay writing, there was I remember one writing contest. There were like 500-600 contestants, and they got the third place. And how did I got it? Not with creativity, but with engineering. And that's where I decided that I don't want to do the creative part. I want to do the engineering part.
Here you say, when you say engineering, you mean social engineering.
Exactly. So I went to when I thought that I write a really good piece, I never got a good spot. But when I did the mind map of all the CVs of the people in the jury, no wonders I got a good spot. So that basically meant I understood that to be good in the creative industry, you need to be an engineer still.
So if I understood you correctly, you went into engineering because you thought it's more honest, where there is less possibility for kind of cheating.
Exactly, because if you go to the physics or math contest, you had to get the right answer, and it doesn't matter how you get to it. There might be multiple paths, but at the end, what mattered is that you got it right, and that one objective truth. Of course, if you're doing product design, there's no one objective truth, but there is objective truth in the way the machine either provides the value or it doesn't, and opinions matter less in a sense.
Speaking about honesty, you mentioned that for you, you went into engineering, into physics, this field, because this is like more honest. But have you encountered these situations in your life or in life of people you know, where someone else would claim would claim the achievements they made in engineering or in science, and go and pick up all those awards and credits?
Yeah, that's I haven't thought about that in a way, but yeah,
because probably this is also a possibility in the engineering world as well, that some are not so honest and don't really have knowledge, but they are in the team, and how do you know who is in the team did what?
Yeah, that's true. That if you're talking about the team dynamics, then there could be all sorts of people, and also dynamics between companies, because when we're working with biotech equipment, then the competition there is also quite cutthroat. So I've seen like totally like bogus patent litigation cases, for example, where I've been providing my technical input to help the jury to decide whether it's violation or not, for example. And but again, usually the people who are writing those bogus documents are not engineers; they are lawyers. And then that there are some dirty tactics to harm the competition. So, but fortunately, I've seen it less. But now I've also seen that part of the business and a bit of so engineering. Of course, to get to a successful product is one thing. To get the successful company is a whole different layer of abstractions, where you also need different kind of creativity.
I see. Also, I saw in your CV, in your experience, that you've been stationed to Shanghai, representing Estonia.
Yeah, that was a really interesting year.
Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, it was 2010. And I was working for the Estonian pavilion on the World Exhibition in the World Expo 2010. And that was my first time to be in Asia. And also back then, China was, I think, the most open it has ever been, because after that, it has moved in a bit different direction. And it was a really wonderful experience in terms that I was living in one of the biggest cities in the world, inside the city, which was built inside the city, and I had the possibility to travel around the world every day and every night, because during the days we were working for the Estonian pavilion. During the nights we went and visited all the other foreigners who were working for their own country. So we made a lot of really interesting connections there.
It was your first time experience staying long abroad?
No, I also did some studies and research work in Sweden before. But it was first time I worked in a country with such different culture and dynamics. So it was very eye-opening. And also I thought about the cultural differences. And
have you made friends there?
Yeah, and there are still people with whom I stay in touch and to help me, because at the moment we are doing electronics and hardware, and the Chinese manufacturing partners are still very important for us to deliver the best products. And also what it really helped me to understand the differences, because if you're doing business in Europe, then thanks to EU and long history of business partnership, the understandings there are cultural differences, but people understand each other quite well. In the engineering world, at least, you have harmonized standards, and people stick to those. I have a really good example with like an engineering example, if you want. It was more than a decade ago, and we were building a device, and every device needs some sort of power supply. So we spec'd out the needs for the power brick, how many volts, how many amps we need, and we sent requests to the Chinese vendors, and we got a good offer, bought a box full of power bricks, and we plugged them in, and they don't work. No output. I was thinking like, wow, did they send me a box full of crap? Can't be. And then we like send the reclamations, and they sent us more. Again, they don't work. And then it took us some weeks to understand that this Chinese factory who were building power bricks for Euroblocks, they had actually never seen a Euroblock. So the power brick, it looked like it's made for the Euroblock, but the neck, the protective neck that doesn't allow you to touch the pins while you're plugging or unplugging the socket, the neck was just a bit too short. But because in China you have power sockets on the wall which accept all the different types, like the UK type, the US type, and the Euro type, it has no protection. It's a bit more dangerous, but you can plug all sorts of devices in there. And they had only tested their Euroblock power bricks on their own wall sockets. And after that, you understand that when you're specifying something, you have to take into account all the context. And after that, we always send like a drawing and photograph with a caliper showing all the critical dimensions, even for the Euroblock, which is something that we take for granted, that they're all the same. So
I like in this example that you didn't stop short blaming that these are bad people or they're not diligent, but you actually found out that it's not about the people, it's about that it was missing this specific information.
Exactly.
And then you fix this, because this is quite common in the root cause. People end up blaming some other people or departments. And this is a good example of how it should be done in a more proper way.
Yeah, it was just we take something for like obvious knowledge, but it might not be obvious for the others. So it teaches us to be really specific with our needs, even for things that seem obvious for us. So, and it's the same like we were talking about. If you're chatting with a GPT, you have to be really precise in what you're asking. Otherwise, the creativity can go to a whole different direction.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's you can say ChatGPT is representative of AI culture.
Yeah.
Talk to AI. But you are running company Science Mosaic.
Yeah.
which is doing hardware and software design for custom applications.
Yeah.
So basically, different people for their different needs, they can make your order, and you will make the solution.
Yeah.
Is there something which you will definitely not do, like the red line?
Yeah, well, we have over the years we have drawn some boundaries because my background is in applied physics, and electronics has been my like a hobby for since I was a child, and then during university, and I built my knowledge not in academic way. Then I've drawn myself in a line, and also because we are a bit of creative and chaotic, then we don't do any high voltage stuff. We don't do any high power stuff. So we draw the line where all the critical parts that can blow up, burn down your house, this is something that we don't touch, because also things that can harm people, like heavy equipment, because they're, you can't be as free with your creativity.
But this high voltage, it's you're not touching this because you don't feel you're competent to touch that, or you're in general against this?
No, I'm not against it, but I know that this needs a more rigid process for your own safety, for the safety of your customers, because we are building like small volume equipment, like more complex machines, like the bioprinters, for example. We build like 5-10 unit batches as handmade crafts, basically. Then if we have some sort of like error, the machine doesn't function, we send a new module for the customer, or we tweak or make it better. So people may lose a work day or two, but they don't lose a finger in life. But if you're doing like high voltage equipment, like when we're working with electric cars, for example, if that bursts into flames, it's it's a lot of damages.
Speaking about this electric cars, this is a hot topic nowadays, since in the EU there is a direction to replace eventually all the cars with electric cars. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a complex topic. In general, I like the electric cars because of the simplicity. Because I grew up like all the Soviet time kids. Then all of us, at least the ones who went into engineering, they at some part of their life they have taken apart the internal combustion engine for a moped, like a go-kart, and repairing like motorcycles or old cars.
I had neighbors who fully disassembled the car. They did it just for fun. They disassemble it, assembled it again.
Yeah, it's a really cool engineering, but knowing the complexity and what can go wrong and all the wear and tear issues, in electric car you have a lot less of those. And the only question is, are the materials available in needed quantities? And then what sort of damages that brings to the world? That might be a different question.
Speaking about the damages, nowadays there is introduction of 5G, and there is this Internet of Things. More things are being connected. And what do you think of? It definitely increases the level of the electromagnetic fields, and its sub-item, this radio frequencies, radio fields.
Yeah.
What do you think about that and its impact on the flora, fauna, and human health?
To my knowledge, it's not an issue. So, at least the science, I believe that the science, that the power of that signal is so low, so it doesn't have any impact on the biology. So I don't see that there an issue. Because of course polluting the radio band, that's a different thing, because the radio spectrum is something that we all share. So and being mindful about to what sort of applications you allocate it, that's of course important. But I think that all this kind of improvements in the communication industry, it's, at the end of the day, it's good, because we can have a smarter city environment, smarter industry thanks to it. So the information industry is what has brought us here since the starting of a printing press, basically. So, and I would not like to see going back in that trajectory, definitely. So,
all right. The question that I'll ask you now, it's like many other questions, you can skip if you want. That's absolutely fine. But here is a question. If you were Prime Minister of Estonia, what are the main things you would change?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, I'm just not politically very opinionated, but I would definitely, as an entrepreneur, I would take care of the, let's say, conditions in terms for the entrepreneurs, so it would be easy to do business in Estonia. And I would definitely cut the expenses of the public sector. So someone who's been also part of work there for a little bit of time, the way how people handle the finances in the public sector is a lot different than in the private sector, let's say that way.
In a way that it's less efficient.
It's absolutely less efficient, and people are much more careless because the feedback loop for me is really short. If the product sucks, I'm out of money. For them, the feedback loop can be decades. They can build up new regulations, auditing systems, different kind of processes for planning permits or whatever, and then the effects come 20 years down the line when nobody wants to do business here anymore. So
here it leads to my next question. Do you think the world would have been better if countries were managed by engineers and scientists?
Well, that's a good philosophical question. Yeah, I think it will be more efficient. But what the better means, that's a different for everyone. But I believe that at the end of the day, especially in the let's say well-developed countries, what people tend to forget is that all the comforts that we can enjoy, they come from the objective values that are provided, exploited from the nature. But it's really easy if you've been if you're living in like a city apartment and you do some abstract office work. It's really easy to forget.
Question I would like to ask you also is, it's not really maybe connected to the engineering or leadership, at least indirectly.
Yeah.
But it's a question more about the imagination and kind of a humorous question. If you were a vegetable, which one you would be and why?
That's a really interesting one. Vegetable. Yeah. Let's take from a philosophical point of view. Would like to be maybe not a vegetable, but a weed. Something that you can't get rid of that easily. Yeah, because usually vegetables are engineered for high yield. But in that sense, they lose in the resilience. But I would rather be than like a weed, which is really resilient to all the environmental changes and all the aspects that they try to attack them in the environment.
Speaking about the resilience, you brought very good example to this question, but about yourself personally. When it comes to the business,
yeah,
and when there are different kind of crises, like economic crises, those external factors, and sometimes internal.
Yeah, the chip shortage was a big one that we had during the COVID time.
in this kind of situation, when it's like not easy, what will you tell to your team? I mean, you have this gathering of the meeting, and you need to share them this kind of bad news and motivate them.
Yeah.
So imagine they are in front of you. What will you tell them?
Well, the main thing is to have a plan and keep moving. That's the main thing, because the worst thing that you can do is to get into the paralyzed state, which happens quite often when people have been in when you have like a good stride, you have success after success, and then you have the failure. Then it's easy to get paralyzed, because you're not used to the uncomfortableness of the situation. Because of course there are also situations which are like fatal, and then you just have to deal with the consequences. But quite often there is always a possibility for a plan B or C or D, and you always have to look into the future, not cry about the past that used to be good. So that's maybe the main thing to emphasize, is that okay, the plan that we had didn't work. What we do now? So we change something in the business, something in the design, whatever the crisis is. So,
do you agree that it's the response that you will have and the level of stress? It's actually depends on how closely you are to kind of collapse. And let's say if you're really close to the collapse and you're close to the wall, you're like pushed behind the wall. At this point, how will you cope with the stress and help your team?
that's a good question.
So let's put it this in another way. You have cash to run the company for the 2 weeks only left.
Then I've already done something really wrong in the past, because I've been very conservative. So I 2 weeks, then the company should have been already closed down some time ago, I would say, because you always have some bills to pay after that also. But so I not to be in debt to anyone. Then it's just immediate execution. That's what I say. That, and then for myself, I always have written down like milestones and goals. So it's otherwise it's really easy to slip. Like your cash balance goes down. This is what I see at the moment with the startups. That the cash balance goes down a bit, but you still hope. Cash balance goes down a bit, and you still hope, and then you find yourself like hundreds of thousands of euros in debt for the government. These things have to be prevented with preventative milestones that you just can't run over all of them. Yeah, and I've gone through it in the past, because 2015-16 I had twice as many employees, and we had a lot of busy work and stuff, and then suddenly some of the customers dropped, and we were out of cash, and there was no time for discussion. It was just no hard feelings.
What was the reason those customers dropped?
There were multiple reasons, because some of them couldn't get the next funding for the project. The other one, the concept didn't work as they planned. So that there was no future for the product that we were building. So it just had to be dumped. So, and I had overhired a bit, and back then I also didn't have much of a product portfolio yet, because now we are much more diversified, and that was also one thing that I took from that you need to have more diversification, industry-wise, company size-wise. If you work only with startups, you're in trouble right now. If you work with big companies, they also consume less during the recession times. But there's always need for something, and if one industry is doing better, the other can compensate for that. So building resilience is definitely something that I took from that experience. and then having the like hard milestones before running out of cash, because back then also I had like I think 3 months cash left. And then this is where I draw my hard line, because the startups, if you have like 1 year of cash in the bank, then they say it's too much. I think it's just enough, because that gives you room to change the direction and try new things.
This is quite common advice that I hear, that how much you need to ask from investors, and that it should be at least one year.
This is just to keep you always on the edge. You can't have because the investors, they don't want to give you too much, because then you get sloppy with the money, and then you can spend it on things that you don't need. You need to be always close to the edge, so you would give the maximum out of yourself. But in a company where you want to be sustainable in the long run, I think being always on the edge, it's just it destroys you. So.
All right. And now I want to ask you a question from ChatGPT.
Oh, cool.
So now let's swap the situation. Before we imagine the scenario where the company is in a difficult situation, there is running out of the cash.
Yeah.
Now let's say the situation is okay. All is fine, there is enough cash. And in this situation, the question is from ChatGPT is that you as a leader, how do you approach recruitment and retention of the talent? Like, what's your strategy to build and maintain a high-performing team?
And what's the relation to the GPT?
ChatGPT generated this question.
GPT generated that question. Okay. How would you build a team? Well, I think the main thing is to what I've always I don't have too much hiring experience, but over the career I've hired like 10 plus people for different roles. And then the main thing is what I look for is not the academic achievements or of course they are a good indicator of some sort of discipline, but the main thing that I look for is interest, like a deeper interest, because I've seen many people who come from university with great grades because they have the discipline and they're used to learning. But if I ask like what have you done outside of school in that field, and they have nothing to show than maybe a school project that they had to do, and their hobbies are somewhere else, like in music or in arts or dancing, which is all nice, but it's all the best engineers that I've seen are people who are engineers through their whole waking time. And if like the best engineer that I've hired, he had no academic education at all, but he came to the interview with a backpack full of PCB boards that he had designed, that he can tell me exactly all the details on the board, how it did it, why it did it that way. It was instant hire, because I know that you might not have the academic knowledge, but this is something you can also learn on the job. But the main thing is that you're passionate about it, and if you're going home, you're not watching sitcoms, but you're watching YouTube channels about engineering, and next day you come to work and you're that a bit wiser. So or you build something yourself. So, but of course, in a scaling company, that's probably not an option to find only this kind of people. Then it's more about the general values of how people would act in the different situations. Main thing is, are they solution oriented, or are they? That's the main thing. What I would try to probe for them. That if there's a problem, you never blame the people, you never blame the systems, but you're only talking about what you can do in the future. How can I improve the system? How can I improve the people? Or if somebody's not improving, then they have to go. But the main thing is the focus on the future and on the progression.
So if I understood you correctly, then what you're saying about maintaining the high-performing team and retaining these talents is by picking from the first place the right people who are passionate about these things.
Absolutely.
And then in this case, you don't really need to motivate them.
Yeah. You still have to like draw out the goals and make sure that everybody has tasks most suitable for them, so they're not bored, and then they are also not given tasks that are too complicated for them. But then if you give the right task to them, they are motivated to do it and do also the necessary learning. Because also as my shirt says, when we're building new kind of products, almost always there is some aspect that we haven't done before ever. So we just have to read the handbooks, Google.
So just to read out if it's not visible. My job is top secret, even if I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Even I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. So in many cases, that is the honest answer. But we have the mindset and the process to find out what do we have to do to find right people, find right information.
Have you, or what do you think that if, let's say, students coming and didn't have experience kind of pet project or side projects beyond the academia, but the person has the fundament, will you go into taking the person who has this kind of fundament and trying to bring passion?
Might be an option, but if it's already a grown-up person, then I think it's more complicated than the person can be still a really good employee, but they are usually not the ones who are they're good maintenance people, let's say, right? For example, if you have like an existing project, existing code base, then these kind of people who have like a good discipline, academic discipline, they can be really good maintenance people, but they are not the creative types who come up with new ideas or want to, because when you want to change something, you want to do something radically different, you want to build something that you've never done before, then these kind of people usually they lose their initiative sooner or later. And the initiative only comes from people who have shown that initiative already from their earlier age, let's say. And initiative is something that's more harder to learn than skills, technical skills. That's at least my opinion. But big companies, they need a lot of maintenance people. They don't need that many people with creativity and initiative in that sense. So, yeah.
But how do you think universities should change, or those people who are starting there to get started with this kind of side projects, to go beyond the academia?
Yeah.
What should they do?
You just have to pick something that it's a good question, because it's just to try a lot of things. That's the main thing, I think. If something interests you, and then you find a way to do it. And the most interesting people, I think, are ones who are combining different fields. For example, I have had like an assembly worker here years ago. He was learning philosophy in university, but he was a really good assembly worker because when he was a child, he went to the model airplane club. So, like, really good at crafts, and also really good at basic understanding what a good construction means, what it means to build something well. And if you get that kind of exposure early on, that goes along with you for your whole life. Whatever he's doing now in his life, that sticks with you. And then there are other people who might have like a really good academic background and knowledge, but if they don't like working with their hands, for example, and they have haven't expressed that urge in 20 years, then they probably, if they're 30 years old, they still don't do that. If they don't deliberately put themselves into the positions where they can learn to enjoy it. So,
but let's say students coming and applying for a job in your company.
Yeah.
And you already said that for you, like the key criteria would be if the person went beyond academia, what was required in the course, and tried out something new.
Yeah.
So let's say that person, you are working with the embedded design as well, and this microcontrollers, microprocessors. And let's say that person comes and tells you that he did something with the Arduino, different kind of stuff.
Yep.
Will you take it like, will it be already kind of indicator for you, or you will actually say, why didn't you go?
No, it's already. No, it's that doesn't matter what the complexity of it was, but the main thing is that you had the motivation to take on the challenge. It can be a small thing. It doesn't have to be something like a grandiose, something that you worked on for months or years. No, it can be like a small tinkering things, and it means that you look the world in a different way. You look like, this is something I can tinker with, not just that I learned it, but there's no way I can apply it. Because in the real engineering tasks, building an equipment, you always have to look like, what can I do here? Like what can I tinker here? Can I try different things? Like we built like a mechanics to open some manifolds and put on chips. They all come out from some hobby project from building models, for example. And you take that part here, you take that part there, and you put them together in a new and novel way. But yeah, I don't think that people need to work on really complex hobby projects for that. The main thing is that they take some initiative to apply what they learn or find some extra information. And it doesn't have to be related to the work directly. It just has to be some technical work. Like if they I also had one guy who was really passionate about bicycles, and he was modifying the bicycles in interesting ways, electrifying them, making them work with the different kind of transmission systems. So there's no direct application in our work, but it still means that he's not going home and turning on Netflix, just consume the time away, but he's taking some initiative to do something novel. So
how do you think parents or schools should motivate kids, the growing generations, to take this kind of initiatives?
The main thing is just giving them an options to do it, and also an option to basically the option to experiment. And that also means one big problem that I see in the school system is it also means option to fail, option to cut into your finger, option to get some electrical shocks maybe. Because when I was a kid, I got it all, and fortunately, I still have all my fingers intact.
So you support this fail-safe, learn fast.
Yeah. I would rather say that it's better to have a school system where let's say 1 or 2 kids per year in Estonia lose a finger, than to have a school system where people don't get any exposure to. Let's say to experimentation with option of course safety rules need to be followed, but what I see that the things tend to go more and more to the safer side, that don't try that, don't do that, it might be dangerous, but that way you train people to be passive, not to experiment and not to try out things. So taking this kind of early exposure, I think it's the most important.
It's actually reminded me that in schools you have certain track, you have certain expectations, what needs to be done, and quite often probably it doesn't give so much freedom to do something on your own. But I have an example where one friend of mine, he is doing homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that there is no like rigid structure what subject you need to take. So one day his son said he wanted to study the transport system in Tallinn.
Oh.
So couple of days he was traveling from morning to evening on the buses on different roads.
Yeah.
And he learned everything about those buses and what needs to be improved, what's the problems.
Oh yeah. One project that we worked on was a ticketing system for city transportation. That was years ago. So then we also got a good exposure about it. So from the surface, it looks really simple that you have routes and buses, but there's a lot of planning that goes behind it, so it would work as fluently as it does.
But what do you think? On one hand, there is a school. You come from morning to evening. You have this structure, what topics, subjects you take, or to give this kind of freedom just to do what you want.
I think these things have to go hand in hand because what also the education sciences have proven now, and it's also getting more popular back again in the United States, is that why the Soviet education systems, which is also on top of on which I have grown on because I went to the school already in the independent Estonia, but it was still taught by Soviet time teachers with that kind of model. Nowadays it's quite frowned upon as rigid and but I don't think that. But I think that you need that solid foundation of knowledge. Nowadays, people from the first grade, it's all about creativity. But if you don't have any knowledge, any hard knowledge, then you also can't have really valuable creativity. Yeah. So I think these things have to go hand in hand. So you have like at least the main basic subjects. You need to have a solid math and language skills, and then you can build stuff on top of that and science skills. And then let's say for example maybe in the arts class, maybe exactly everybody shouldn't draw the same sun or the tree. If you want to draw a machine, you draw a machine. If you want to draw another person, you draw another person. And there I would give more flexibility. Of course, you need techniques and you need to know the paints, how they work and how they flow. But after that, you should have maybe more freedom. But having a lot of freedom in the math and science, it's not, let's say, it's not a field where the opinion matters, but the hard truth, how the nature works, matters the most.
Now, I want to ask you, give you the case. It will be, I want you to listen carefully. I'll be reading you out. There are lots of key points. Case is the following, this scenario. You are the newly appointed head of the engineering department, a prestigious engineering company. And the company has been awarded a high-profile contract to design and build state-of-the-art bridge connecting two cities. And this project is crucial for region's economic development, and it has significant budget and tight timeline. So 1 month into the project, you discover that there is a critical flaw in the initial design that could compromise the bridge's long-term safety and structural integrity. This flaw was overlooked during the initial planning phase, and solving it will require significant redesign, causing delays and increased costs. Like maybe we can think about the Stalin library renovation.
Yeah.
And the project team is composed of highly skilled engineers and technical experts who have been with the company for many years. However, there is a tension in the team now growing because of the situation, because they say that initial design responsibility was of the previous engineering head. You are just appointed.
Okay.
So they say it's the responsibility of the previous part of the team. Another part of the team say that actually it's the responsibility of this team and you personally. So you recently learned that there are concerns from the client about the project's progress as well, and growing media attention due to the delay. and the client is considering terminating the contract. And the project has a fixed budget and tight timeline, and there is threat that the budget can be exceeded at the moment. So you're under the pressure from the senior management, from customers, from different sites about tight budget and timeline, and there are also tensions in the team. And basically the question is, how would you address, first of all, how will you make sure that within all the circumstances that the bridge is still delivered and it's safe?
Yeah, well, I don't know too much about civil engineering projects, but from what I've heard from my peers and read about it, then when you build something that's like a big infrastructure project with a lot of moving parts and variables, then it's quite common that things go over budget. And then if the government doesn't have the budget, then this is something that should be negotiated. But first of all, if there are multiple teams with different opinions about the safety of the engineering, then first of all, I would get more opinions from outside to make sure that we have a solid understanding of the problem. Then communicate it also with the engineering team that we should focus on finding the correct solution, not doing the blame game, which is something that can happen in some sort of organizations. And then most probably focus on finding ways to bump up more money for the project, because if it's strategically, economically really important, then usually there are ways to get more funding to it, and that should be the main focus of the team, to have sound engineering which is verified by multiple parties, and then to find a suitable budget no matter what. And that's.
But this multiple parties, you mean, will you provide it to some external organization to review?
Yeah, well, somebody who doesn't have any previous opinion,
like more independent.
Yeah, independent opinion, because you can't be biased if you're working with safety of something that's really affects people's lives and safety. So it's.
And what will you tell to your clients who are angry and ready to terminate the contract?
Well, it depends of how much do they want the project. It's like you can be angry and terminate the project, but still, if you allow to happen something that's not safe and sound, then the liability that you get is way worse than.
Let's put it this way: there is quite a real thing with the completion in Tallinn of the renovations of the Pronksi Road and other stuff, and they were promised to be completed earlier. And you're mayor of Tallinn. What will you tell them?
I'm the mayor of Tallinn, and I'm responsible. You say what you always say, that we're working to provide the best possible results, and best possible results take a bit more time.
but you see, here is the catch. You're, let's say, as a mayor, and here is saying you are maybe leading the team, the engineers, but the actual people who are doing the work are the other people, or in other words, some subcontractor. But you are responsible to tell to the public or to the clients.
Yeah. Well, in that case, it's only about explaining. So it's as a mayor in that situation, you don't have real control over the progress of the construction. You can't go and micromanage the people who are laying the roads. There's no point of doing that. Otherwise, you might just be left with. You also can't terminate the work that's been already started, because the road needs to be there. If it's like a new project, like the bridge example, then of course there's an option that we don't do it, or we do it in a decade when we're more prosperous. But yeah, you can't get in this kind of situations. If you also look for the Mayor of Tallinn, you can't get really emotional. The Mayor of Tallinn is an example of not being emotional about stuff. Really, it's
But why I ask this question? Because it's just reminded me when you said it also depends on the client how much they want this bridge. I mean, in this kind of scenario, and of course, bridge is something like if you design it, you're building it. Who else can go and replace you? You basically have to finish it, even if it's over deadline.
Yeah.
And with this kind of infrastructural projects, you are kind of irreplaceable.
Yeah, and that gives you a leverage to also ask for more money.
Yeah, but in the long term, maybe when there is a next project and you go for tender, they will remind you remember.
Yeah, but then you're the guy who built the biggest bridge, so it's of course possible that it can have a bad long-term impact, but one thing that I learned from some projects that have also been rated to the public, where the end user is from the general public, then nobody remembers if you launched your product like half years later over the initial expected deadline. Nobody remembers if it was over the budget. But everybody remembers if it fails grandiosely. If the bridge collapses, you're written in the history. If you're spent twice as much money, it's just a sentence in the Wikipedia.
All right. And now we are approaching to the end of this job interview. And my last question in this job interview, before we conclude this, is what's your salary expectation for this position?
Well, that's always a philosophical question also, but let's say that in many cases, and I always prefer to have a performance-based pay, let's say that way. So yeah, that's what I like about, because I like to have skin in the game and I like to be rewarded when things go well.
So let's say you are not on a good track. Maybe something outside of work happened. You are not really committing. Then it's okay to reduce your pay.
Absolutely, because if I'm not contributing, then I also don't deserve the fruits. But if the product is successful, then I would like to have also my gains to be sized up. So,
all right,
that's how I've always approached it. So,
and with this we conclude our job interview, and of course there were a kind of pauses and breaks, not like in one flow. But if you summarize in full, what are your impressions from this job interview, and was it similar to your previous experience?
Yeah, well, actually, I have in my life I only been to, I think, 4 job interviews before, so I don't have too much experience. But I've been through hundreds of sales interviews to sell my technical expertise as a consultant. So this is probably more relatable to that. Yeah, usually when I'm selling my services, then it's more. I try to be really focused on the value that I can provide, because everybody's busy and that there's no much time for philosophy and then wider discussions, at least in the beginning. But usually when we have a longer collaboration with some of the clients, then sooner or later we also get to this kind of longer discussions and debates. Usually when there's some more complex problem to solve, when we have to have longer discussions, then it's sometimes also good to take a focus off from the exact technical problem and also talk about the wider perspective, because this helps people to better align, to get under get to the same wavelength of understanding how we should go on. Because at the end, if you have better understanding with the other person, then it's also easier to to make the decisions related to the project and to find the optimal solution for everyone. So
great. And there are different people who are watching and listening us in this podcast. But if we address right now specifically that part of audience who are in the beginning of their career, or just students or the graduated students, so to say, aspiring engineers and scientists, what advice would you give them?
I would think that the main thing is just if you like the field what you have picked yourself, if you're like a university student, or if you're a high school student, or you're just starting to pick your career, then just find the ways to experiment and do stuff as soon as possible, because there is if you're interested in a software, it's especially easy. You just close that YouTube tab and open another one, to Google for some technology that you would like to apply, and just start with a tutorial. Build a small project, put it on GitHub, and then if you have something, share it with your friends, ask what they think. If you're interested in the hardware and the mechatronics and all the engineering stuff, then there are many ways to get started with small hobby projects. Building something that you like. Is it like a bicycle or a model car or an airplane or a Lego machine or whatever sparks your interest? Because nowadays, thanks to the internet, you have access to basically all sorts of knowledge. So it's easier than ever to start. Because when I started with my electronics hobby, I actually walked to the public library, took the electronics magazines from other countries and make photocopies of the pages that I liked, and then took them home and tried to rebuild the circuits and stuff. Now it's just Google image search, and you get all that content that took me hours to retrieve. So it's just to find the ways to build something, and then you also discover what's comfortable for you and what you're good at. So, and if you have something to show for, then it also builds your confidence. So if you go to your first job interview, you already have stories to tell, have some experiences to share. So that's a good starting point.
Thank you. That was Tanel Ainla in the episode of Leaders and Engineers. Thank you for watching and listening us.